You're trash. Trash. Go back to whatever ghetto you crawled out of. Victoria Sterling's diamond-crusted finger stabbed through the air at the black server standing motionless before her. The entire restaurant froze. Forks suspended mid-air. Conversations died mid-sentence. She had no idea she'd just called the man who owned the building, the restaurant, and every piece of silverware she'd touched a piece of garbage.
What happens next will change everything you think you know about power, dignity, and the price of cruelty. But here's the twist that makes this story unforgettable. This man didn't build his empire for money. He built it for a promise he made to his dying wife. Stay until the end, then comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The phone call came at 2:47 a.m. Marcus Thompson sat straight up in bed, his heart already pounding before he even answered. Calls at this hour never brought good news. In his 53 years on this earth, he'd learned that lesson too many times. "Mr. Thompson?" The voice on the other end was young, nervous. "This is Derek from Aurelia. I'm sorry to call so late, sir, but we had another incident tonight." Marcus rubbed his eyes. His bedroom was dark except for the blue glow of his phone screen. On the nightstand beside him sat a framed photograph he touched every night before sleep. His wife, Gloria, smiling in front of their very first restaurant, the day they opened 18 years ago. "What kind of incident, Derek?" "Jessica quit. Right in the middle of dinner service. She threw her apron on the floor and walked out. Told Bradley she'd rather be homeless than work another shift under him." Marcus closed his eyes. Jessica had been with them for 4 years. Single mother of 2, never missed a shift, never complained. For her to walk out mid-service meant something had broken. "That's the 3rd server this month," Marcus said quietly. "5th, sir. 2 others left last week. They didn't even give notice." Marcus swung his legs over the side of the bed. His feet hit the cold, hardwood floor, and the chill traveled straight up his spine. Something was rotting inside his flagship restaurant. He could feel it in his bones. "Derek, I need you to do something for me. Don't tell anyone I called. Not Bradley, not anyone. Understand?" "Yes, sir. I'll handle this myself." He ended the call and sat in the darkness for a long moment. The house was too quiet. It had been too quiet for 2 years now, ever since Gloria lost her battle with cancer. The silence used to suffocate him. Now it just reminded him of everything he was fighting for. On the dresser across the room, another photograph caught the moonlight streaming through the window. His daughter Zoe, 8 years old, gap-toothed smile, wearing a tiny chef's hat Gloria had bought her for her 5th birthday. "I'm going to make you proud, baby girl," he whispered. "Both of you." The next morning, Marcus made a phone call that would change everything. "Sophia, I need a favor." Sophia Chen, his COO and the public face of Aurelia Hospitality Group, answered on the second ring. She'd been with Marcus since the beginning, back when Aurelia was just a 20-seat bistro in the Bronx, and Marcus was washing dishes during the day and doing the books at night. "Marcus, it's 7 in the morning. This better be good." "Something's wrong at the flagship. Numbers are off. Staff is bleeding out. I've had 5 servers quit in the last month." "I know. I've been looking at the reports. Bradley's explanations don't add up. I was going to suggest we bring in auditors." "No auditors." Sophia paused. She knew that tone. "Marcus, what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking I need to see it for myself. From the inside." Another pause. Longer this time. "You want to go undercover? In your own restaurant?" "I know that floor better than any auditor, Sophia. I spent 6 years waiting tables to pay for business school. I know what a healthy restaurant feels like. And I know what a dying one looks like. Bradley will recognize you No, he won't. I've never met the man face to face. You hired him while Gloria was sick. All our meetings have been over video, and I always kept my camera off. To him, I'm just a name on a letterhead." Sophia was quiet for a moment. Then she laughed softly. "You're crazy. You know that? Gloria always said that was my best quality." "All right, I'll set it up. New identity, fabricated background. When do you want to start?" Marcus looked at the photograph of Gloria on his nightstand. Her eyes seemed to be daring him, the way they always did when he was about to do something bold. Tonight. 3 hours later, Marcus stood in front of his bathroom mirror and barely recognized himself. Gone was the tailored Italian suit he wore to board meetings. Gone was the Rolex Gloria had given him for their 10th anniversary. Gone were the gold cufflinks, the silk tie, the air of authority he'd spent decades cultivating. In their place, a plain black shirt, slightly too small, cheap polyester pants, scuffed shoes he'd bought from a thrift store that morning. His usually immaculate fade was hidden under a worn baseball cap. He'd removed his wedding ring for the first time since Gloria put it on his finger. That hurt more than anything else. "Michael," he said to his reflection, practicing the name Sophia had given him. "Michael Davis, 53 years old, recently divorced, looking for a fresh start." The man in the mirror looked tired, ordinary, invisible, perfect. His first shift started at 4 p.m. Marcus arrived at Aurelia 30 minutes early, just like he told every new hire to do. The restaurant was already humming with pre-service prep. Servers folding napkins, busboys polishing glasses, the distant clatter of pots from the kitchen. He'd built this place from nothing, poured every dollar he had, every dream he and Gloria shared, into these walls. The crystal chandeliers they'd picked out together, the mahogany bar they'd found at an estate sale in Connecticut, the original artwork from black artists they'd collected over 20 years. And now he was walking through the service entrance like a stranger. "You must be the new guy." Marcus turned. A young black man, maybe 25, was walking toward him with a stack of menus in his arms. His name tag read, Darnell. "That's me, Michael." Darnell shifted the menus and extended a hand. His grip was firm, his smile genuine, but tired. "Welcome to the madhouse, brother. You picked a hell of a time to start." "That bad?" Darnell glanced around, making sure no one was in earshot. "Let's just say, keep your head down, do your job, and whatever you do, don't get on Bradley's bad side. The man's got a mean streak a mile wide." "Bradley? The general manager?" "The general pain in everyone's ass is rough lately." Marcus studied the young man's face. The dark circles. "Good people. You must be Michael. The agency said you had restaurant experience." "Yes, sir. 20 years." 20 years, huh? Where?" "Small places mostly. Nothing like this." Marcus kept his voice humble, his eyes downcast. "I appreciate the opportunity, Mr. Foster." Bradley studied him for a moment. Marcus could feel the man's gaze taking inventory. His dark skin, his age, his worn clothes. Something flickered across Bradley's face. Not quite contempt, not quite dismissal. Something in between. "Well, Michael, let me make one thing clear." Bradley stepped closer, lowering his voice. "This is a fine dining establishment. Our clientele expects a certain standard. You understand what I'm saying?" Marcus understood perfectly. He'd been hearing variations of that speech his entire life. "Yes, sir, I understand." "Good. Darnell will show you the ropes. Try not to embarrass yourself on your first night." Bradley walked away without another word, already pulling out his phone, already forgetting Marcus existed. Darnell let out a breath. "See what I mean?" "Yeah," Marcus said quietly. "I see exactly what you mean." The dinner service started at 6. For the first 2 hours, Marcus worked in silence, filling water glasses, clearing plates, staying invisible. It was strange, being back on the floor after so many years behind a desk. The sore feet, the aching back, the constant motion. But it was also familiar, comforting even. This was where he'd started, where he'd learned that hospitality wasn't about fancy food or expensive wine. It was about making people feel seen, valued, welcome. He watched everything. He watched Bradley hover near the host stand, all charm and smiles whenever wealthy patrons arrived, transforming into something cold and sharp the moment they turned away. He watched Sarah, the young hostess, flinch every time Bradley said her name. He watched the servers move through their sections with mechanical efficiency. No joy, no warmth, just survival. And he watched Darnell. The young man was good, really good, graceful under pressure, quick with a smile. He had the kind of natural warmth that couldn't be taught, the kind that made guests feel like they were eating in his home instead of a restaurant. Around 8 p.m., Marcus was refilling water glasses in Darnell's section when he overheard a table of 4 businessmen giving the young server a hard time. "I said I wanted the steak medium rare," one of them barked. "This is medium, maybe more. Can you people not tell the difference?" You people. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. Darnell didn't miss a beat. "I apologize, sir. Let me take that back to the kitchen and have them prepare exactly what you ordered. On the house, of course." "It's already on the house. Your manager comped our appetizers because the last server we had couldn't pour wine without spilling it." "Of course, sir. I'll make this right." Darnell picked up the plate with steady hands, but Marcus saw the tremble in his fingers, the shame burning in his eyes. When Darnell walked past him toward the kitchen, Marcus fell into step beside him. "You okay?" Darnell's professional mask slipped for just a moment. "Man, I got 2 kids at home, a mortgage. Wife just went back to work part-time because we need the extra income." He pushed through the kitchen door. "I can take their racist garbage. I've been taking it my whole life. But some days it feels like too much." Darnell stopped walking. He looked at Marcus, really looked at him for the first time. "Yeah," he said softly. "Some days it does." At 9 p.m., Marcus was clearing a table near the window when the front door opened and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. She walked in like she expected the world to part for her. Late 50s, maybe early 60s, but fighting it with everything modern medicine could offer. Blonde hair styled to perfection. A black designer dress that cost more than most cars. Diamonds at her ears, her neck, her wrists, and on her arm, a white Hermes Birkin bag that Marcus happened to know retailed for over $100,000. Behind her trailed 2 other women, similar age, similar wealth, but neither possessed the cold, predatory energy of the woman leading them. "Reservation for Sterling," the woman announced to Sarah. "The booth by the window. We requested it specifically." Sarah's face went pale. "Mrs. Sterling, I'm so sorry, but that booth is reserved for Mr. Chen. He's one of our—" "Mr. Who?" The woman's voice cut like broken glass. "I don't care if it's reserved for the Pope. Do you know who my husband is? Richard Sterling. Sterling Properties. He could buy this building and everyone in it." Sarah looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. "Ma'am, I can offer you our second-best table. It has a lovely view of—" "I don't want a lovely view. I want that booth. The one I reserved 3 weeks ago." "Are you incompetent or just stupid?" Marcus watched from across the room, his water pitcher frozen in his hand. He watched Sarah's eyes start to glisten with tears she was desperately trying not to shed. And then Bradley appeared. "Mrs. Sterling!" He swooped in like a shark smelling blood. "What a pleasure to see you again.
Is there a problem? Your hostess is the problem. She's trying to give away our booth to some Mr. Chen. Bradley shot Sarah a look of pure venom. Then he turned back to Mrs. Sterling with his empty smile. My sincerest apologies. Of course you can have your booth. Sarah, move the Chen reservation to table 12. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. But sir, table 12 is next to the kitchen. Did I stutter? Sarah shook her head, tears now openly streaming down her face. No, sir. Mrs. Sterling smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Good. Come along, girls. I need a drink after dealing with this incompetence. As the three women swept past the host stand, Mrs. Sterling's gaze landed briefly on Marcus. Her eyes traveled over his dark skin, his humble uniform, his water pitcher. Her nose wrinkled almost imperceptibly, as if she'd smelled something unpleasant. Then she looked away, dismissing him entirely. Marcus had been invisible to her, less than human, just part of the furniture. He set down his water pitcher and took a slow, deep breath. He'd come here to find the rot in his restaurant. He'd found it, but he hadn't expected it to feel like this. The old familiar ache of being made to feel small, of being judged by the color of his skin before a single word left his mouth. For a moment, he wasn't Marcus Thompson, hospitality mogul. He was Marcus Thompson, 8 years old, watching his mother come home crying because her boss called her the help in front of his family. He was Marcus Thompson, 22, being told he was articulate by a restaurant owner who seemed surprised he could string a sentence together. He was Marcus Thompson, 45, standing in his own restaurant's parking lot while the security guard demanded proof he belonged there. The moments stacked up like bricks in his chest. 53 years of them. But he'd learned long ago that the best revenge was success. Gloria had taught him that. Build something they can't ignore. Build something that outlasts their hatred. Build something beautiful. He straightened his uniform, picked up his water pitcher, and got back to work. Because Marcus Thompson wasn't finished yet. Not by a long shot. And Mrs. Victoria Sterling was about to learn that the hardest lessons in life often come from the people you least expect. The next 2 hours were a masterclass in casual cruelty. Marcus, assigned to assist in Mrs. Sterling's section, had a front row seat to the show. The water was too warm, too cold, had too many ice cubes, had too few. Each complaint was delivered with a theatrical sigh, as if Mrs. Sterling were suffering through some tremendous personal inconvenience. Her friends, Pamela and Margaret, Marcus learned from their conversation, nodded along with every criticism, though he noticed they rarely made direct eye contact with the servers. Followers, he realized. They weren't cruel by nature. They were just too weak to stand against their queen. I don't understand why they can't get simple things right, Mrs. Sterling announced loudly enough for several nearby tables to hear. It's like they just hire anyone off the street these days. Her gaze flicked to Marcus, who was clearing a nearby table. The message was clear. He kept his head down, kept working, kept watching. The wine incident happened around 10 p.m. Darnell had presented a $600 bottle of Cabernet to the table, following perfect protocol. He showed Mrs. Sterling the label, opened it tableside, poured a small taste for her approval. She swirled. She sniffed. She sipped. It's corked, she declared. Darnell maintained his composure. Ma'am, would you mind if I checked, just to verify with the sommelier? Are you calling me a liar? No, ma'am, of course not. I just want to make sure we replace it with a perfect bottle. The problem isn't the bottle. The problem is your attitude. Mrs. Sterling's voice rose. I've been coming to this restaurant for 2 years, and the service gets worse every time. Where's your manager? Bradley materialized like he'd been summoned. Mrs. Sterling, what seems to be the issue? This server,
She waved at Darnell like he was a fly to be swatted. "Is arguing with me about the wine. I said it's corked. He practically accused me of lying." Bradley didn't taste the wine, didn't ask questions. He turned to Darnell with cold eyes. "Bring another bottle. This one's on the house. And Darnell, see me in the kitchen. Now." Marcus watched Darnell's shoulders slump as he walked toward the kitchen. He watched Mrs. Sterling smile in satisfaction, watched her friends clink their glasses in silent celebration of another victory. Something hot and sharp twisted in Marcus's gut. He built this restaurant on respect, on the idea that everyone who walked through those doors, guest or staff, deserved dignity. And here was his general manager throwing his best server under the bus to please a bully. Marcus set down the plates he was carrying and followed Darnell to the kitchen. He needed to see this for himself. The kitchen was chaos. Controlled chaos, but chaos nonetheless. Line cooks shouting orders, the clatter of pans, the hiss of steam. In the far corner, near the walk-in freezer, Bradley had Darnell cornered. Marcus grabbed a stack of clean plates from the dish station and pretended to organize them while positioning himself close enough to hear. "Don't care what you think the wine tasted like," Bradley was saying. "Mrs. Sterling is a VIP. Do you understand what that means?" "Sir, I wasn't arguing with her. I just asked if I could verify." "Verify? Who do you think you are, a sommelier? You're a server, Darnell. Your job is to smile, nod, and make the customer happy, not question them." "But the wine was fine. I've been doing this for 3 years. I know what corked wine—" "You know what?" Bradley stepped closer, his voice dropping to something almost worse than shouting, a cold, quiet threat. "You think because you've been here a few years, you're irreplaceable? I've got a stack of applications on my desk from people who would kill for your job. Single mothers, kids fresh out of school. They'd be grateful for the opportunity. They wouldn't argue." Darnell's jaw tightened. "I'm just trying to do my job, sir." "Your job is whatever I say it is. And right now, your job is to get back out there, apologize to Mrs. Sterling, and pray she doesn't ask me to fire you on the spot." "Because I will, Darnell. I absolutely will." Marcus watched Darnell's hands curl into fists at his sides, watched him take a deep breath, watched him swallow whatever words he wanted to say, probably needed to say. "Yes, sir," Darnell said quietly. "I understand." He walked back toward the dining room, passing Marcus without a glance. His eyes were fixed straight ahead, his face a careful mask of nothing. But Marcus saw the tremor in his hand, saw the way he paused at the kitchen door, just for a moment, to compose himself. This is what my restaurant has become, Marcus thought. A place where good men are broken down, where dignity is sacrificed on the altar of wealthy customers' egos. He thought about Gloria, about the promise he'd made her in the hospital 3 days before she died. "Keep building something beautiful, baby," she'd whispered, her hands so thin and fragile in his. "Something that makes people feel seen. That's our legacy. That's what we leave for Zoe." He'd promised. He'd sworn it on everything he loved. And he wasn't about to break that promise now. By 11 p.m., Marcus had made a decision. He'd seen enough to know the problems ran deep. Bradley wasn't just a bad manager. He was actively poisoning the culture Marcus and Gloria had spent decades building. The staff lived in fear. The standards had slipped. The soul of the place was dying. But he wasn't ready to reveal himself. Not yet. He needed more evidence. Needed to understand exactly how far the rot had spread. So he kept working. Kept watching. Kept collecting data. That's when the food arrived at Mrs. Sterling's table. Chef Antoine's signature dish, seared diver scallops with saffron risotto and microgreens. Marcus had eaten that dish 100 times. had watched Antoine perfect it over years of iteration. It was beautiful, perfect, a work of art. Mrs. Sterling looked at her plate. Then she did something that made Marcus's blood run cold. With deliberate, theatrical slowness, she reached up to her perfectly styled hair. Her fingers found a single blonde strand. She plucked it free, and she laid it carefully, precisely, across the top of her scallops. Pamela and Margaret watched with wide eyes. Neither said a word. Mrs. Sterling smiled. Then she screamed, "A hair! There's a hair in my food!" The dining room went silent. Every head turned. Mrs. Sterling pushed the plate away with such force it skidded across the table, splattering risotto on the pristine white tablecloth. "This is disgusting! I am trying to have a civilized meal, and you people," her voice cracked with theatrical outrage, "serve me filth!" Bradley came running. Sarah came running. Every server within earshot came running. But Marcus didn't move. He stood frozen, still holding his water pitcher, replaying in his mind what he'd just witnessed. The deliberate reach, the careful pluck, the calculated placement. She'd done it. She'd sabotaged her own meal to cause a scene, to humiliate someone, to feel powerful. And now she was looking around the room, her face twisted with contempt, searching for someone to blame. Her eyes landed on Darnell, who was standing near the service station. "You!" she pointed at him. "I've had enough of your incompetence tonight. First the wine, now this. What kind of establishment lets someone like you handle food?" Darnell's face went carefully blank. "Ma'am, I didn't—" "Don't you dare speak to me! Don't you dare!" Mrs. Sterling was on her feet now, her voice carrying to every corner of the restaurant. "Bradley, I want this man fired. Immediately. He's clearly contaminated my food. God knows what else he's been doing in that kitchen." Marcus felt something shift inside him, a cold clarity settling over the hot anger. She'd planted the hair. She knew it. He knew it. And now she was trying to destroy Darnell's livelihood over a lie. Bradley looked at Darnell, looked at Mrs. Sterling, made his calculation. "Darnell, you're suspended pending investigation. Clock out. Now." "Sir, I said clock out." Darnell stood there for a moment, his whole body rigid with the effort of not exploding. 3 years of his life, his wife, his kids, his mortgage, all of it, threatened because a rich woman wanted entertainment. That's when Marcus stepped forward. "Excuse me." Every eye in the room swiveled to him, the quiet, middle-aged black man who'd been invisible all night. Mrs. Sterling's lip curled. "Who are you?" "I saw what happened, ma'am." Bradley's face went dark. "Michael, get back to work. This doesn't concern you." "I'm sorry, sir, but it does." Marcus met Bradley's eyes. "That man didn't put a hair in her food. She did. I watched her pull it from her own head and place it on the plate." The silence that followed was absolute. Mrs. Sterling's face went through a remarkable transformation. Shock, then rage, then something that looked almost like fear. "How dare you?" she breathed. "How dare you accuse me? Do you know who I am? Do you have any idea what I could do to you?" "I know exactly who you are, ma'am." "Bradley, fire this man immediately. He's lying. He's clearly some kind of... She sputtered, searching for words. "Look at him. He's probably trying to protect his friend there." His friend. The way she said it made the racial implication crystal clear. Bradley stepped toward Marcus, his face a mask of barely contained fury. "Michael, you're fired. Get your things and..." "No." The word hung in the air. "Excuse me?" Bradley's voice dripped with disbelief. "I said no." Marcus straightened to his full height. He was done being invisible.
done being small. I'm not going anywhere, and neither is Darnell. Not until we settle this honestly. You can't refuse. You're fired. Security! Go ahead and call them. Marcus's voice was calm, eerily calm. But you might want to hear what I have to say first, Bradley. Something in his tone made Bradley pause. Who are you? Marcus looked around the restaurant. His restaurant. The crystal chandeliers Gloria had chosen. The artwork they'd collected together. The tables where thousands of guests had celebrated birthdays, anniversaries, first dates, last dinners. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Sophia, it's time. The heavy oak doors of Aurelia swung open, and in that moment, everything was about to change. The heavy oak doors swung open, and Sophia Chen walked in like she owned the place, which, in many ways, she did. Behind her came two security guards in dark suits, their faces blank and professional. They moved with the quiet efficiency of men who had done this before and would do it again. Bradley Foster's face went through a rapid series of transformations. First, confusion. Then, recognition. Then something that looked very much like terror. Miss Chen, he stammered. What a surprise. I wasn't expecting... We didn't have any corporate visits scheduled. No, Sophia said calmly. You didn't. She stopped in the center of the dining room, her eyes sweeping across the frozen tableau. The stunned diners, the trembling staff. Mrs. Sterling, still standing with her finger pointed at Marcus. And Marcus himself, phone in hand, watching everything with an expression that had shifted from the meek servility of Michael to something far more dangerous. Bradley, Sophia continued, her voice carrying to every corner of the silent room. Would you like to tell me what's happening here? Bradley's mouth opened and closed several times. He looked like a man watching his career flash before his eyes. Ms. Chen, this is just a small misunderstanding. A customer complaint. I was handling it. This employee, he gestured at Marcus with barely concealed contempt, was being insubordinate. I had to let him go. Did you? It wasn't a question. It was a statement, flat and cold. Mrs. Sterling, who had been watching this exchange with growing confusion, decided this was her moment. She stepped forward, adjusting her expression into something she probably thought was dignified outrage. Excuse me, are you management? Thank God. I need to file a formal complaint. This man, she pointed at Darnell, contaminated my food. And this other one, she pointed at Marcus, had the audacity to call me a liar, in front of everyone. I have never been so humiliated in my life. Sophia turned to look at Mrs. Sterling. Her expression didn't change, but something in her eyes made the older woman take an involuntary step back. Mrs. Sterling, Sophia said. Victoria Sterling, wife of Richard Sterling. Sterling Properties. Yes, that's right. So you know who you're dealing with. I do. Sophia glanced at Marcus. I believe you wanted to handle this yourself? Every eye in the room swiveled to the quiet black man in the server's uniform. The one who had been invisible all night. The one who had just refused to be fired. Marcus set down his water pitcher on the nearest table. The small sound seemed impossibly loud in the silence. Thank you, Sophia. He reached up and removed the worn baseball cap he'd been wearing all night. Then he straightened his posture, squaring his shoulders in a way that seemed to add inches to his height. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. The humble, deferential tone of Michael was gone, replaced by something that commanded attention. Mrs. Sterling, he said, my name is not Michael Davis. Victoria Sterling's perfectly sculpted eyebrows drew together. What are you talking about? Who are you? My name is Marcus Thompson. For a moment, the name hung in the air, meaningless.
Then Bradley Foster made a strangled sound, something between a gasp and a whimper. "Thompson," Bradley whispered. "Marcus Thompson. As in the founder and majority owner of Aurelia Hospitality Group." Marcus met Bradley's eyes. "The man whose name is on your paycheck. The man who built this restaurant from nothing with his wife 20 years ago. The man whose company you've been stealing from for the past 8 months." The blood drained from Bradley's face so completely that he looked like a corpse. I don't... You can't be..." Bradley was shaking his head, backing away. "This is impossible. Marcus Thompson doesn't... You've never seen my face because I kept my camera off during our video meetings. My wife was dying of cancer, Bradley. I was spending every moment I could with her. I trusted you to run this restaurant with integrity." Marcus's voice hardened. "That was my mistake." Victoria Sterling was still processing. Her mouth opened and closed several times, but no sound came out. For the first time all evening, she seemed genuinely at a loss. "Wait," she finally managed. "You're the owner? You were pretending to be a waiter?" "I was investigating. Something was wrong with my restaurant. Staff were quitting. Numbers weren't adding up. I needed to see for myself." Marcus turned to face her fully. "And I saw plenty, Mrs. Sterling. I saw you berate a young hostess until she cried. I saw you send back perfectly good wine to humiliate your server. And I watched." His voice dropped to something quiet and deadly. "I watched you pull a hair from your own head and place it on your food. I watched you commit fraud and then try to destroy a man's livelihood to cover it up." "That's a lie!" Victoria's voice had gone shrill. "That's slander! I'll sue you! I'll sue this entire company!" "My husband will..." "Your husband will what?" Marcus cut her off. "Richard Sterling, Sterling Properties. I know exactly who he is. He's been trying to get a meeting with Sophia for months. His company is one of 3 finalists for our Miami development project, a $90 million contract." Victoria's face went white. "I wonder," Marcus continued, his voice thoughtful, "what his board of directors will say when they find out his wife's behavior just created a massive liability for our brand. A liability that was..." He paused, looking around the room at the dozens of phones still pointed in their direction. "Captured on video by at least 30 witnesses." Victoria's eyes darted around the room. For the first time, she seemed to register the sea of smartphones, the recording lights, the faces of strangers who had watched her tantrum from beginning to end. You can't," she stammered. "Delete those. All of you. Delete those videos right now." Nobody moved. "You think you can threaten me?" Victoria's voice was rising, cracking at the edges. "Do you have any idea who I am? My husband will destroy you. He'll have this place shut down by morning. He'll do nothing." Marcus's voice was calm, certain. "Because Richard Sterling is a businessman, Mrs. Sterling, and a businessman knows when to cut his losses. Right now, you are a loss, a liability. And when those videos hit the internet," he checked his watch, "probably within the hour, your husband is going to have some very difficult decisions to make." Victoria was breathing hard now, her chest heaving beneath her designer dress. The mask of superiority had crumbled completely, revealing something raw and desperate underneath. "Please," she whispered, the words seeming to cost her physical pain. "Please, don't! My reputation, everything I've built." "Everything you've built?" Marcus's voice went soft, but there was steel underneath. "What exactly have you built, Mrs. Sterling? What have you created? What have you contributed to this world besides cruelty and entitlement?" He took a step toward her, and she flinched back as if he might strike her. "Let me tell you what I've built. I built this restaurant with my wife, Gloria, starting with nothing but a small loan and a dream. She was a line cook. I was a dishwasher. We worked 18-hour days for years, saving every penny, learning every aspect of this business from the ground up. His voice grew rougher, emotion bleeding through the controlled exterior. Gloria died 2 years ago. Cancer. She spent her last days not thinking about herself, but about the people who worked for us, the families who depended on us. She made me promise to keep building something that mattered, something that treated people with dignity. He gestured around the room. Every person in this restaurant, wearing the uniform tonight, they're not just employees. They're people with families, dreams, struggles. Darnell over there? He's got 2 kids and a mortgage. He works doubles to make ends meet. Sarah, the hostess you reduced to tears? She's putting herself through college. Jessica, who quit last week because of the hostile environment my manager created. She's a single mother who just lost her primary income. Marcus's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but somehow it carried to every corner of the room. And you called them incompetent, worthless. You tried to destroy Darnell's career over a lie just because you could. Just because you wanted to feel powerful. He shook his head slowly. My daughter is 8 years old, Mrs. Sterling. Her name is Zoe. She's going to grow up black in America, just like I did. And someday, probably sooner than I'd like, someone is going to look at her the way you looked at me tonight. The way you looked at Darnell. Like she's less than human. Like she doesn't belong. His eyes were bright now, glistening with emotion he no longer tried to hide. What do you want her to learn from people like you? What lesson should she take from watching you tear down everyone around you, just because you can? Victoria Sterling stood frozen. The crimson of her dress seemed garish now, like a wound against the muted elegance of the restaurant. Her designer jewelry glittered obscenely under the chandelier lights. I didn't mean, she started, but the words died in her throat. You didn't mean what? To be caught? Marcus shook his head. The only thing you're sorry about is that someone saw, that someone had the audacity to hold you accountable. He turned away from her, dismissing her completely, and faced Bradley Foster. The general manager had been trying to inch toward the back exit. He froze when Marcus's eyes found him. Bradley, let's talk about you. Mr. Thompson, please. Bradley's voice had gone high and reedy. I can explain everything. The staff turnover. It's been a difficult market. The numbers, there have been supply chain issues. I've been doing my best in very challenging circumstances. Have you? Marcus pulled his phone from his pocket and tapped the screen. Sophia sent me some interesting documents this morning. Want to know what they say? Bradley said nothing. His face had taken on a grayish pallor. Your predecessor's managerial comp budget averaged $1,500 a month. That's for comping meals when the kitchen makes a mistake, sending out a free dessert for someone's birthday. Standard hospitality. Your comp budget, Bradley, has averaged $12,000 a month. Those were legitimate business expenses. $4,350 to Mrs. Sterling alone over the past 2 months. $8,000 to a David Polson, your brother-in-law, unless I'm mistaken. $3,200 to Karen Foster, your sister. Bradley's mouth was moving, but no sound was coming out. You've been feeding your friends and family at my expense, Bradley. You've been running a personal dining club on my company's dime. That's theft, plain and simple. I was building relationships, cultivating high-value customers. You were stealing. Marcus's voice was flat, final. And while you were stealing, you were destroying the culture my wife and I spent 20 years building. You berated servers for correctly identifying wine issues. You threatened hostesses for following protocol. You created an environment so toxic that my best employees would rather be unemployed than work another shift under you. Marcus nodded to the security guards, who had been standing silently near the door. Bradley Foster,
Your employment with Aurelia Hospitality Group is terminated effective immediately for gross misconduct, hostile work environment, and embezzlement. No, no, please, Bradley's voice cracked. Mr. Thompson, please. I have a family, a mortgage, kids in private school. I'll pay it back, every penny. I'll work for free. Please don't do this. You should have thought about your family before you decided to steal from mine. The security guards moved forward, one on each side of Bradley. He didn't resist. His legs seemed barely able to hold him up. You'll be escorted to your office to collect your personal belongings. You will not touch the computer. You will not access any files. You will not speak to any member of the staff. Our legal team will be in contact tomorrow regarding restitution for the $47,000 you've embezzled. If you're not fully cooperative, we'll file a police report. Please, Bradley whispered. Please, I'm begging you. Did Darnell beg? Marcus asked quietly. When you threatened his job for correctly identifying that the wine wasn't corked? Did Jessica beg before she quit? Did Sarah beg when you made her cry in front of customers? Bradley had no answer. Get him out of here. The guards walked him across the dining room. Every patron watched. Every staff member watched. It was a long walk, past the bar where bartenders he'd screamed at stood with crossed arms, past the service station where servers he'd belittled stared with cold eyes, past the kitchen doors where the line cooks had gathered to witness his downfall. The kitchen door swung closed behind him, and he was gone. Marcus let out a slow breath. The first phase was complete. The enabler was dealt with. Now for the disease itself. He turned back to Victoria Sterling. She was still standing where he'd left her, but something had changed. Her friends, Pamela and Margaret, were no longer at her sides. They had retreated to the booth, gathering their purses, their eyes fixed anywhere but on their erstwhile queen. Victoria noticed, at the same moment, Marcus did. Pamela? Margaret? Where are you going? Pamela wouldn't meet her eyes. We should go, Vicky. This has gotten out of hand. Out of hand? They're attacking me. Aren't you going to support me? Margaret, we've been friends for 20 years. Margaret's lips pressed together in a thin line. Actually, Victoria, you've been exhausting for 20 years. I just didn't have the courage to say it. Margaret! The way you treated that hostess tonight? The things you said to that young server? The way you talked to anyone you consider beneath you? Margaret shook her head. I've watched you do it for 2 decades. I've laughed along because it was easier than standing up to you. But I'm done. You can't be serious. After everything I've done for you, what exactly have you done for me, Victoria? Invited me to parties where I could watch you humiliate the catering staff? Let me sit at your table while you terrorized waitresses for sport? Margaret picked up her purse. I should have walked away years ago. I was a coward. I'm not going to be a coward anymore. She walked past Victoria without another glance, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. She paused briefly near Marcus. I'm sorry, she said quietly, for laughing along, for not saying anything. That's not who I want to be. Marcus nodded slowly. Then don't be that person anymore. It's never too late to change. Margaret blinked rapidly, her eyes glistening. Then she turned and walked out the front door without looking back. Pamela scrambled to follow her, muttering something about having to be somewhere, practically running toward the exit. She didn't even pause to apologize. Victoria Sterling stood alone in the center of the dining room, abandoned by the women she'd called friends for decades. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The only sounds were the soft shuffle of feet as staff members shifted their weight, the distant hum of the kitchen ventilation, and Victoria's ragged breathing. Then the tears came. Not quiet, dignified tears. These were ugly, racking sobs that twisted her carefully made-up face into something unrecognizable.
Her mascara ran in black rivers down her cheeks. Her shoulders shook. "Please," she gasped between sobs. "Please don't do this. My reputation, the videos, my husband." She looked around wildly, seeing the phones still recording, seeing the faces of strangers who had witnessed her humiliation. "I didn't mean it. I didn't mean any of it. I just wanted—" "You wanted to feel powerful," Marcus said quietly. "You wanted to make yourself feel big by making others feel small. I understand that impulse, Mrs. Sterling. I've seen it my whole life, from people who had nothing and people who had everything. The hunger for power at others' expense, it's a sickness." Victoria was shaking her head, tears still streaming. "You don't understand. You can't understand. My whole life, my whole identity is built on making others feel worthless." Marcus's voice wasn't cruel, but it wasn't kind either. "That's not an identity, Mrs. Sterling. That's a prison you built for yourself. And now the walls are coming down." He walked over to the service station, where Darnell was still standing motionless, watching everything unfold with wide eyes. Marcus picked up a small receipt that had printed from the POS system. "One last thing, Mrs. Sterling." He held up the slip of paper. "Your bill." Victoria stared at him uncomprehendingly. "The items you and your friends consumed tonight, minus Mr. Foster's unauthorized comps. 1 bottle of San Pellegrino, 2 glasses of champagne, the Carpaccio appetizer, and of course, the $600 bottle of Opus 1 Cabernet that you enjoyed a glass and a half of before discovering it was mysteriously corked." He read from the receipt. "Your total, with tax, is $872.16. Victoria let out a strangled laugh that might have been a sob. "You're charging me? After all this?" "I'm running a business, Mrs. Sterling. The food you ate had a cost. The wine you drank had a cost. Just because you caused a scene doesn't mean those costs disappear." I don't have my wallet. My husband handles—" "Then we'll send the bill to his office." Marcus handed the receipt to Sophia, along with a detailed incident report and copies of the security footage. "I'm sure Richard will appreciate having all the information he needs to make informed decisions about his family's public relations strategy." The mention of Richard seemed to break something in Victoria. She let out a keening sound, somewhere between a moan and a scream, and grabbed her Birkin bag from the chair where she'd left it. "This isn't over," she hissed, her voice venomous even through the tears. "I'll sue you. I'll destroy you. You think you're so righteous, but you're just... I'm just a black man who owns a restaurant," Marcus finished for her. "A black man you called trash without knowing anything about me, without caring. Because to you, I wasn't a person. I was furniture, beneath notice, beneath respect." He met her eyes steadily. "I hope someday you learn that the people you walk past, the people you dismiss, the people you treat like garbage, they're all human beings with their own stories, their own struggles, their own dignity. Maybe this will be the day you start learning that lesson. Or maybe you'll spend the rest of your life blaming everyone but yourself for what happened here tonight." He turned away from her, a gesture of final dismissal. "Either way, Mrs. Sterling, you're no longer welcome in any Aurelia property. Ever. Goodbye." Victoria Sterling stood frozen for a long moment. Then, clutching her Birkin bag like a lifeline, she stumbled toward the door. She fumbled with the handle, pulling when she should have pushed, and Marcus saw Darnell move instinctively to help her. He stopped himself, straightened, let her struggle. Finally, Victoria managed to get the door open. She fled into the night without a backward glance, her sobs echoing briefly before the heavy oak door swung shut behind her. The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus stood in the center of his restaurant, surrounded by his staff, watched by dozens of strangers who had just witnessed something they would probably never forget. He felt exhausted, hollowed out. The anger that had sustained him through the confrontation had drained away, leaving behind something more complicated. Sadness, grief, an old, familiar weariness. "Mr. Thompson?" The voice was tentative, young. Marcus turned. Sarah, the hostess, was standing near her podium, her eyes red-rimmed but no longer crying. "Yes, Sarah?" "I just wanted to say," she swallowed hard, "I've been here 6 months, and that was the first time anyone ever stood up for me. For any of us. So, thank you." Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. This was why he'd done it. This was why he'd spent 3 nights invisible, swallowing his pride, watching his restaurant rot from the inside. For moments like this, for people like Sarah. "You don't have to thank me," he said quietly. "I should have been here sooner. I should have seen what was happening before it got this bad. That's my failure. You're here now." This came from Darnell, who had walked over to stand beside Sarah. His eyes were bright with emotion. "You're here now, and that matters." Marcus looked at the young man who had endured so much tonight. The racist comments, the unjust accusations, the threat to his livelihood. Through all of it, Darnell had maintained his dignity, his professionalism. "Darnell, sir, how long have you been here?" 3 years, sir. Started as a busboy, worked my way up." "You've got 2 kids?" Darnell blinked in surprise. "Yes, sir. Jalen is 4. Maya just turned 2. "And you've been covering for Bradley's incompetence this whole time? Running the floor when he was too busy comping meals for his friends?" Darnell hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Someone had to keep things running, sir. The other servers, they depend on this place. I couldn't let it fall apart just because management was—" He caught himself. Was what? Was more interested in impressing rich customers than in taking care of the team. Marcus was quiet for a moment, studying Darnell's face. He saw himself in that face. 25 years younger, hungry, ambitious, but not willing to sacrifice his principles to get ahead. "Sophia?" "Yes?" "I need you to draft a promotion letter tonight." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "For?" "Darnell," Marcus realized he didn't know the man's last name. "Williams, sir. Darnell Williams." "Darnell Williams is the new general manager of Aurelia, New York. Effective immediately. Full salary, full bonus structure, full benefits. And Sophia, add a college tuition assistance clause for his children." Darnell's mouth fell open. For a moment he looked like he might faint. "Mr. Thompson, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll take the job. Say you'll help me rebuild what we lost here." Darnell's eyes were glistening. He blinked rapidly, trying to maintain composure. "Yes," he managed, his voice cracking. "Yes, sir. I'll take it. I won't let you down." "I know you won't." Marcus put his hand on Darnell's shoulder. "You've already proven that. Tonight proved it. The way you kept your composure when that woman was attacking you, when Bradley was threatening you. That's leadership. That's what this place needs." He turned to address the rest of the staff, who had gathered in a loose semicircle around him. Servers, busboys, bartenders, even a few cooks who had emerged from the kitchen. They were watching him with expressions ranging from shock to hope to barely concealed tears. "I owe all of you an apology," Marcus said, his voice carrying across the silent room. "I should have been here. I got so caught up in expansion, in growth, in building the empire, that I lost sight of what matters most. The people who make it all possible. You deserved better leadership. You deserved protection. And you didn't get it." He paused, letting the words settle. "That changes tonight. Bradley Foster is gone. The culture he created is gone. Starting tomorrow, Darnell is your new general manager, and I promise you, personally promise you, that things are going to be different." A young busboy raised his hand tentatively. Marcus recognized him from earlier in the evening. Liam, the one who never stopped moving, even when chaos erupted.
Yes?
Does this mean we're safe? I mean, like, we're not going to get fired for what happened tonight? Marcus felt his heart crack a little. This was what Bradley had created. A culture of fear so deep that even now, after everything, his staff was worried about their jobs. "You're safe," Marcus said firmly. "All of you. Your jobs is secure. And anyone who's been dealing with unreasonable treatment, anyone who's been threatened or harassed, my door is open." Darnell's door is open. Sophia's door is open. We're going to fix this. Together. Liam's face broke into a grin. Several other staff members were openly crying now, tears of relief streaming down their faces. Marcus clapped his hands together once, the sharp sound cutting through the emotion. "Now, we still have guests to serve. We still have a dinner service to complete. And I don't know about you, but I think these people have been patient enough." He gestured to the dining room full of patrons who had just witnessed the most dramatic dinner theater of their lives. A ripple of laughter went through the crowd. "So let's show them what real hospitality looks like." Marcus picked up a water pitcher from the service station. "Darnell, you're in charge. Put me to work." Darnell stared at him. "Sir? You heard me. I spent 6 years waiting tables before I opened my first restaurant. My skills are a little rusty, but I can still fill a water glass." He smiled, the first genuine smile he'd felt in days. "Table 7 looks thirsty. I'll take that one." He walked across the dining room, pitcher in hand, toward a table of 4 who had watched the entire evening unfold, with their mouths hanging open. "Good evening, folks. My name is Marcus. I'll be helping out your server tonight. Can I top off anyone's water?" The man at the table let out a disbelieving laugh. "Are you really? I mean, you're the owner. You just fired your manager. And now you're serving water?" Marcus shrugged. "It's all hospitality. And honestly, after tonight, this feels like exactly where I need to be." He filled their glasses one by one, the cool water splashing gently against the crystal. "Your server will be with you shortly. In the meantime, dinner's on the house. Consider it an apology for the interruption." The man shook his head slowly. "This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. My wife is never going to believe me." "Oh, she'll believe you." Marcus nodded toward the man's wife, who was still holding her phone up. "I think you got the whole thing on video." Another burst of laughter. "Is that going on the internet?" Marcus asked, his tone light. "Probably," the wife admitted. "Is that okay?" Marcus thought about it for a moment. About Victoria Sterling, somewhere out in the night, watching her world crumble. About Bradley Foster, cleaning out his desk under the watchful eyes of security guards. About all the people who needed to see that cruelty had consequences. "Yeah," he said finally. "I think it's okay. Some stories need to be told." He moved on to the next table, pitcher in hand, doing the work he'd done countless times before. The familiar rhythm settled over him like a comfortable coat. Fill a glass, smile, move on. Fill another glass. Around him, the restaurant slowly returned to life. Servers picked up their trays. Busboys cleared tables. The kitchen resumed its controlled chaos. The hum of conversation started up again, tentative at first, then growing stronger. But there was something different now, something lighter. The staff moved with a new energy, their shoulders straighter, their smiles more genuine. The fear was gone. Marcus finished his round of water service and returned to the service station, where Darnell was already issuing quiet instructions to the team, his voice calm and confident. A natural leader finding his footing. "You're going to be great at this," Marcus said quietly. Darnell looked at him. I don't know how to thank you, Mr. Thompson. You changed my life tonight. You changed your own life. I just opened a door. You're the one who has to walk through it. Darnell nodded slowly, absorbing that. Can I ask you something? Anything. How did you do it? All those years ago, building something from nothing. How did you keep going when it seemed impossible? Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking about the question, thinking about Gloria, about Zoe, about all the times he'd wanted to give up and hadn't. I found something worth fighting for, he said finally, and then I refused to stop, no matter what, no matter who told me I couldn't, no matter how hard it got. He met Darnell's eyes. Find your reason, Darnell. The thing that gets you up in the morning, even when everything else is falling apart. That's the secret. That's the only secret there is. Darnell looked across the dining room, toward a window that faced out onto the New York night. My kids, he said softly. Jalen and Maya. They're my reason. Then you've already got everything you need. Marcus put his hand on the younger man's shoulder one more time. Now go run my restaurant. I'll be here if you need me. Darnell straightened up, took a breath, and walked onto the floor to begin his new life. Marcus watched him go, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Real, genuine hope. It had been a brutal night. Ugly truths exposed. Lives upended. But sometimes, he thought, things had to break before they could be rebuilt. He reached into his pocket and touched his phone. After midnight, when things settled down, he would call Zoe. He would tell her about tonight. Not all of it. She was too young for some of the ugliness. But he would tell her about standing up for what was right, about the importance of treating people with dignity, about the kind of man he was trying to be. Gloria would have been proud. He was sure of it. The heavy oak doors of Aurelia swung open one more time, admitting a young couple who looked around with nervous excitement. First-timers, probably. A special occasion, maybe. Anniversary or birthday. Sarah greeted them with a warm smile, her earlier tears completely gone now, replaced by genuine warmth. Welcome to Aurelia. Right this way. Marcus watched her lead them to a perfect table, watched her present the menus with practiced grace, watched her make them feel special and welcomed and seen. This was hospitality. This was what he and Gloria had built. And tonight, despite everything, or maybe because of everything, it was alive again. The night was far from over, but for the first time in months, Marcus Thompson felt like things might actually be okay. The call came 3 days later. Marcus was in his home office, reviewing the preliminary reports Sophia had compiled on Bradley Foster's embezzlement, when his phone buzzed. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. Marcus Thompson. Mr. Thompson. The voice on the other end was male, clipped, professional. This is Richard Sterling. Marcus set down the report and leaned back in his chair. He'd been expecting this call, though not quite so soon. Mr. Sterling, what can I do for you? I think you know why I'm calling. I have some ideas. There was a pause on the other end. Marcus could almost hear the man calculating, strategizing, trying to find the angle that would serve him best. I'd like to meet with you, in person, today, if possible. That's an interesting request, considering your wife called me trash 3 days ago. Another pause. Longer this time. I'm aware of what happened. I've seen the videos. Which ones? There are about 40 of them online now. The one where she plants the hair on her food has over 2 million views. Richard Sterling's breath caught audibly. Mr. Thompson, I'm not calling to make excuses for my wife's behavior. What she did was inexcusable. I'm calling because I believe we're both businessmen, and I believe there might be a way to resolve this situation that benefits everyone involved. Marcus laughed softly. You mean a way that benefits you? I mean a way that prevents further damage to both our families. Mr. Sterling, my family wasn't damaged by what happened. Your wife damaged herself. She damaged your reputation. She damaged your company's chances at a $90 million contract. But my family? My daughter? They're fine. Better than fine, actually. My daughter told me she was proud of me for standing up to a bully. Silence. Please, Richard said finally, and Marcus heard something he hadn't expected in the man's voice. Desperation. Real, genuine desperation. Just meet with me. 1 hour. If you still want nothing to do with us afterward, I'll respect that. Marcus thought about it. He thought about Victoria Sterling's face as she fled the restaurant. He thought about the videos spreading across the internet. He thought about what Gloria would have done. Gloria, who always believed in second chances, who always said that people could change if you gave them the opportunity. 1 hour, Marcus said. My office, 3 o'clock. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Don't thank me yet. He ended the call and sat for a long moment, staring at the photograph of Gloria on his desk. What are you getting me into, baby? He murmured. The photograph didn't answer, but somehow he knew what she would have said. Give him a chance. Listen, then decide. He picked up the phone and called Sophia. We're going to have a visitor this afternoon. Richard Sterling arrived at precisely 3 o'clock. He was not what Marcus had expected. The pictures Marcus had seen online showed a man who looked like Central Casting's idea of a wealthy businessman. Tall, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, exuding confidence and power. The man who walked into Marcus's office looked like he hadn't slept in days. His suit, while expensive, was slightly rumpled. His eyes were red-rimmed. His hands trembled slightly as he reached out to shake Marcus's hand. Mr. Thompson, thank you for seeing me. Sit down, Mr. Sterling. Richard sat in the chair across from Marcus's desk, and for a moment, neither man spoke. Marcus studied his visitor, trying to read the man beneath the exhaustion. You look terrible, Marcus said finally. Richard laughed, a hollow sound. I feel worse. The last 3 days have been... He shook his head. I've fielded calls from every board member, every investor, every client who's seen those videos and wondered what kind of man lets his wife behave like that. What kind of man does? Richard's jaw tightened. A man who stopped paying attention a long time ago. A man who was so focused on building his business that he didn't notice what was happening in his own home. That's a convenient excuse. It's not an excuse. It's the truth. Richard leaned forward, his eyes intense. Victoria wasn't always like this, Mr. Thompson. When we met 30 years ago, she was kind, generous. She volunteered at shelters. She taught Sunday school. Somewhere along the way, she changed. We both changed. I got richer. She got more isolated. And I was too busy to notice that the woman I married was disappearing, being replaced by someone I barely recognized. Marcus said nothing. I'm not asking you to feel sorry for her. What she did was monstrous. The things she said to your employees, the way she treated that young hostess, the lies she told to destroy that server's career. Richard's voice cracked. I watched those videos, Mr. Thompson. All of them. I watched my wife become a monster in real time. And the worst part is, I wasn't surprised. Because I've seen glimpses of it for years. I just didn't want to admit it. Why are you telling me this? Richard met his eyes. Because I need you to understand that what I'm about to propose isn't just about protecting my business or my reputation. It's about something bigger. I'm listening. Richard took a deep breath. I want Victoria to apologize. Publicly. To you. To your staff. To everyone she humiliated that night. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You want her to apologize. She doesn't know I'm here. She'd probably divorce me if she found out. Right now, she's locked in our bedroom, convinced she's the victim in all this, raging about how you set her up, how the whole thing was a conspiracy. Richard's voice was weary. But she's going to apologize. Because it's the right thing to do, and because if she doesn't, I'm leaving her. That got Marcus's attention. You'd leave your wife over this? I should have left her years ago. Or better yet, I should have confronted her, held her accountable. But I was weak. I told myself it was easier to just let her rage at waiters and doormen and anyone else she considered beneath her. I told myself it wasn't my problem. He laughed bitterly. Well, it's my problem now. It's everyone's problem. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, processing everything Richard had said. What exactly do you want from me, Mr. Sterling? I want a chance. Not for me. I don't care about the contract. I'll withdraw from the bidding if that's what it takes. I want a chance for Victoria to make things right, to face the people she hurt and apologize genuinely. And I want... He hesitated. I want advice. Advice? You stood up to her, in front of a room full of people. You told her the truth about herself. No one has ever done that. Her friends enabled her. I enabled her. But you looked her in the eye and told her exactly what she was. Richard's voice was raw. How do I help her become someone different? How do I help her change? Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying the man across from him. You can't change her, Mr. Sterling. She has to want to change herself. But there has to be something. There isn't. Trust me. I've seen plenty of people like your wife over the years. Some of them stay exactly the same until the day they die. Some of them have a moment, a single moment, where they see themselves clearly, and they make a choice. They choose to be different. But that choice has to come from them. All you can do is create the conditions where that choice becomes possible. How? By being honest with her, by holding her accountable, by refusing to enable her behavior anymore. Marcus paused. And by showing her that there are consequences, real consequences, not just uncomfortable dinner conversations, but consequences that affect her life. Richard nodded slowly. The videos. The videos are already out there. That's a consequence she can't escape. Her reputation is destroyed in certain circles. Some of her friends have already abandoned her. Marcus thought of Margaret and Pamela fleeing the restaurant. The question is what she does next. Does she learn from this, or does she double down on her victimhood? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Then you'll have to wait and see. But Mr. Sterling, Marcus leaned forward, if she comes to my restaurant to apologize, it has to be real, not a performance for the cameras. Not a carefully worded statement crafted by a PR team. I'll know the difference. My staff will know the difference. And if she comes in there and delivers some hollow, self-serving apology that's really about making herself feel better, I will throw her out myself. I understand. Do you? Because this isn't about you or your contract or your reputation. This is about the people she hurt. Sarah, who cried herself to sleep that night because a stranger called her stupid in front of her colleagues. Darnell, who almost lost his job because your wife decided to frame him for something she did. Jessica, who quit 2 weeks ago because the environment at that restaurant had become so toxic she couldn't take it anymore. Marcus's voice hardened. Those are real people, Mr. Sterling. Real families. Real lives. Your wife treated them like they were garbage, like they existed only to serve her whims and absorb her abuse. If she wants to apologize, she needs to understand exactly what she did. Not in the abstract, not as a concept. She needs to look those people in the eye and reckon with the damage she caused. Richard was pale now, but he nodded. I'll make her understand. Or I'll try. That's all anyone can do. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Richard spoke again, his voice quiet.
Can I ask you something personal? You can ask. I might not answer. The speech you gave that night, about your wife, about your daughter, about building something that mattered. Richard's eyes were searching. How do you do it? How do you stay good? With all the money, all the power, all the temptations that come with success. How do you stay who you were? Marcus thought about the question. It was a good question. One he'd asked himself many times over the years. I remember where I came from, he said finally. I grew up poor, Mr. Sterling. My mother cleaned hotel rooms for a living. My father left when I was 6. I know what it feels like to be invisible, to have people look right through you like you don't exist, to be treated like you're less than human because of the color of your skin or the size of your bank account. He picked up the photograph of Gloria from his desk and turned it so Richard could see. And I had her, Gloria. She kept me grounded. She reminded me every single day that the measure of a man isn't how much money he has or how many restaurants he owns. It's how he treats people, especially people who can't do anything for him. She sounds like an extraordinary woman. She was. She died 2 years ago. I'm sorry. Don't be. I got 25 years with her. 25 years of watching her light up every room she walked into. 25 years of learning from her. That's more than most people get in a lifetime. Marcus set the photograph down. Now I try to honor her memory by being the man she believed I could be. Some days I succeed. Some days I fail. But I keep trying. Richard was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. I want that. What you have. That clarity. That purpose. Then find it. It's not too late. You're still breathing, Mr. Sterling. That means you still have time. Richard nodded slowly, absorbing the words. Then he stood, extending his hand. Thank you, Mr. Thompson, for seeing me, for being honest with me, for not just throwing me out on my ear, which is probably what I deserved. Marcus shook his hand. Tell your wife what I said. If she wants to apologize, my door is open, but only if it's real. I will. Richard walked to the door, then paused with his hand on the handle. Mr. Thompson? The contract. The Miami project. I meant what I said. I'll withdraw if you want. Marcus considered it. Let's see what happens with Victoria first. If she can find it in herself to genuinely change, genuinely take responsibility, that tells me something about your family, about the kind of partners you'd be. Actions speak louder than words, Mr. Sterling. Fair enough. Richard left, closing the door quietly behind him. Marcus sat alone in his office, thinking about the conversation, about Victoria Sterling and her long fall from grace, about Richard and his desperate hope for redemption, about all the complicated, messy ways that people hurt each other and tried to make it right. His phone buzzed. A text from Darnell. First full day as GM complete. Staff meeting went great. Everyone's excited. Thank you again, Mr. Thompson. I won't let you down. Marcus smiled and typed back, I know you won't. Call me if you need anything. He looked at Gloria's photograph one more time. What do you think, baby? Did I do the right thing? The photograph seemed to smile back at him. The next morning, Marcus drove to Zoe's school to pick her up early. He'd promised her a daddy-daughter lunch date, and after the week he'd had, he needed to see her face more than he needed anything else. She came running out of the school building the moment she saw his car, her backpack bouncing, her braids flying behind her. Daddy! He scooped her up in a hug, holding her tight, breathing in the smell of her shampoo
and the indefinable scent of childhood. "Hey, baby girl, ready for lunch?" "I want pizza." "Pizza it is." They went to a small Italian place a few blocks from her school. Not one of his restaurants, just a family-owned shop that had been there for 40 years. The owner, an elderly Italian woman named Maria, greeted them like family. "Marcus and little Zoe, sit, sit. I'll bring you the usual." They settled into a booth by the window, and Zoe immediately started telling him about her day. The art project she was working on, the book her teacher was reading to the class, the drama with her friends at recess. Marcus listened, nodding in all the right places, but part of his mind was still processing the events of the past week. "Daddy?" He snapped back to attention. "Yeah, baby?" "You're doing that thing again, where you're here but you're not really here." He smiled. She was too smart for her own good, just like her mother. "I'm sorry, I've got a lot on my mind." "Is it about the mean lady? The one in the videos?" Marcus tensed. "You saw those?" "Jayla showed me at school. Her mom had it on her phone." Zoe's face was serious, far too serious for an 8-year-old. "She said really mean things to you, Daddy. She called you trash." Marcus took a deep breath, trying to figure out how to explain this to his daughter, how to help her understand without scaring her or hardening her. "She did say that, baby, and it wasn't right." "Why did she say it? Was it because you're black?" The question hit him like a punch to the gut. His 8-year-old daughter, asking if someone hated him because of the color of his skin. "I think that was part of it," he said carefully. "Some people, they look at people like us and they make decisions about who we are before they even know us. They decide we're not as good, or not as smart, or not as important. And that's wrong. It's always wrong." Zoe was quiet for a moment, processing. "Does that happen a lot?" "Sometimes. Not always. There are a lot of good people in the world, baby. People who judge you by who you are, not what you look like. But yes, sometimes you'll meet people like that lady. People who are cruel because they've decided you don't matter." "What do you do when that happens?" Marcus reached across the table and took his daughter's hand. "You don't let them define you. You don't let their hate make you hateful. You stand up for yourself and the people around you. And then you keep going. You keep building. You keep being the person you want to be, no matter what anyone else says." "Is that what you did? At the restaurant?" I tried. I tried to show her that she was wrong about me, about all the people she'd been cruel to. I tried to give her a chance to see the truth." "Did it work?" Marcus thought about Richard Sterling sitting in his office, desperate and broken. About the videos spreading across the internet. About all the people who had reached out to him since that night. Strangers who had been inspired. Friends who had been proud. Staff members who had finally felt seen. "I don't know yet," he said honestly. "Sometimes change takes time. Sometimes people have to hit bottom before they're ready to climb back up. But I hope so, baby. I hope she learns." Zoe nodded thoughtfully. "Mommy would have been proud of you." The words hit Marcus like a wave, unexpected and overwhelming. His eyes stung. "You think so?" "Yeah. She always said you were the bravest person she knew. She said you didn't let anyone tell you what you couldn't do." Marcus blinked rapidly, fighting back tears. Gloria had said that. He remembered the exact conversation, lying in bed together, late at night, talking about their dreams for the future. "She told you that?" "She told me lots of things, before she got too sick." Zoe's voice was small but steady. "She said you'd take care of me. She said you'd teach me to be brave too." Marcus couldn't speak for a moment. The grief was still there, always there, a permanent ache in his chest. But mixed with it now was something else. Gratitude. Love. Pride. "I'm trying, baby," he managed finally. Every day, I'm trying.
I know, Daddy.
Zoe squeezed his hand.
I know.
Maria arrived with their pizza, breaking the moment. They ate together, talking about lighter things. Zoe's upcoming birthday party, the puppy she desperately wanted, the new song she'd learned in music class. But underneath the everyday conversation, Marcus felt something shifting inside him. A new clarity, a renewed sense of purpose. He had built his restaurant empire for Gloria, to honor her memory, to create something beautiful that outlasted hate and cruelty. But he was raising Zoe for the future, for the world she would inherit, for all the Victoria Sterling she would encounter in her life, and all the strength she would need to face them. That was the real legacy. Not the restaurants, not the money, not the empire. His daughter, his brave, brilliant, beautiful daughter. Everything else was just details. After lunch, Marcus dropped Zoe back at school with a promise to pick her up later for movie night. He was walking back to his car when his phone rang. Sophia. "What's up?" "You need to come to the restaurant, now." Something in her voice made his stomach clench. What happened?
"Victoria Sterling is here. She's asking to speak to the staff."
Marcus stopped walking. "She's there right now?"
"She just walked in. Darnell called me. He doesn't know what to do."
Marcus was already moving toward his car. "Tell him to keep her in the front. I'll be there in 20 minutes.
"Marcus, what do you want him to do if she causes a scene?"
"She won't. Not today." He climbed into the driver's seat. "Today she's going to do exactly what she came to do. Or she's going to leave and never come back."
"How do you know?"
Marcus thought about Richard Sterling's desperate eyes, about the way the man had talked about his wife, the woman she used to be, the woman she'd become. Because some people only get one chance at redemption, and Victoria Sterling is smart enough to know this is hers. He ended the call and drove toward Aurelia, toward whatever was waiting for him there. The reckoning wasn't over yet. Marcus pushed through the doors of Aurelia 18 minutes after Sophia's call. His heart was pounding, but he kept his face calm, controlled. Whatever was about to happen, he needed to be steady. Darnell met him just inside the entrance, his face tight with tension. "She's at the bar. Hasn't ordered anything. Just sitting there." "Has she said anything to anyone?" "Just asked if the staff who were working that night could be gathered. I told her I'd have to check with you first." "Good. Where's Sarah?" Darnell nodded toward the back. "I sent her to the office. She started shaking when she saw Mrs. Sterling walk in. I didn't want her to have to deal with this if she wasn't ready." Marcus put his hand on Darnell's shoulder. "You did the right thing. That's exactly what a good manager does. Protect his people first." Darnell let out a breath. "What do we do now?" "Now I go talk to her. You gather whoever wants to be part of this. And I mean wants to, Darnell. No one is required to face her. This is voluntary. Anyone who doesn't want to see her doesn't have to." "Understood." Marcus walked toward the bar, his footsteps measured and deliberate. Victoria Sterling sat alone on a stool at the far end, her posture rigid, her hands clasped in her lap. She wasn't wearing diamonds today. No designer dress, just a simple blouse, dark slacks, minimal makeup. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. She turned when she heard him approach, and Marcus saw something in her eyes he hadn't expected. Fear. Real, genuine fear.
"Mr. Thompson."
Her voice was barely above a whisper.
"Thank you for not having me thrown out."
Marcus pulled out the stool next to her, but didn't sit. He stood, keeping the height advantage, keeping the power dynamic clear. "Why are you here, Mrs. Sterling?" Victoria swallowed hard. Her hands were trembling in her lap.
"I came to apologize."
"Your husband put you up to this?"
She hesitated. "He helped me see that I needed to do this. But he didn't make me come. That was my choice." Was it? Victoria's jaw tightened. For a moment, Marcus saw a flash of the old Victoria, the one who would have snapped back with something cutting. But then it faded, replaced by something that looked almost like exhaustion. "I've spent the last 4 days locked in my bedroom, Mr. Thompson. I've watched those videos hundreds of times. At first I was angry, furious. I told myself you'd set me up, that it was all a conspiracy, that I was the victim." She laughed bitterly. "Richard let me rage. He let me scream and throw things and blame everyone but myself. And then, on the third night, he came into the bedroom with his laptop, and he played one of the videos again. But this time he paused it. Right at the moment where her voice cracked, where I pulled the hair from my head and put it on the plate." Marcus said nothing. "He made me watch my own hands, my own face, the way I looked around to make sure people were watching before I screamed. He made me see myself as everyone else saw me. And then he asked me one question." "What question?" Victoria's eyes glistened with tears she was fighting to hold back. "He asked me what my mother would think if she could see that video." The words hung in the air between them. "My mother died 15 years ago, Mr. Thompson. She was a school teacher, taught 4th grade for 35 years. She believed that every person deserved respect, every single one. She would have—" Victoria's voice broke completely. "She would have been so ashamed of me." Marcus watched her struggle to compose herself. Part of him wanted to feel satisfaction. This was the woman who had called him trash, who had tried to destroy Darnell's career, who had reduced Sarah to tears. She deserved this pain. But another part of him, the part that Gloria had cultivated over 25 years, felt something else. Something closer to pity. "I'm not the one you need to apologize to," he said finally. Victoria nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. I know. I want to apologize to everyone. The hostess, the server, the chef whose food I insulted, everyone who had to witness my—" She searched for the word. "My cruelty." "Why?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. "What do you mean? Why do you want to apologize? What do you hope to accomplish?" Victoria was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was small. "I don't know if I can explain it properly. For 4 days I've been telling myself that I need to do this to save my reputation, to save Richard's business, to make the story go away." She shook her head slowly. "But that's not why I'm here. I'm here because when I watched myself in those videos, really watched, I didn't recognize the person I saw. That woman was a monster, and I don't want to be that person anymore." "People don't change overnight, Mrs. Sterling. I know. I have years of poison to work through. Richard found me a therapist. I start next week. But that's not enough. It's not enough to just talk about it in some office. I need to face what I did. I need to look into the eyes of the people I hurt and take responsibility." Marcus studied her face, searching for any sign of performance, any hint that this was just another manipulation. He didn't find one. What he found was a woman who looked broken open, raw, terrified. "Wait here," he said. He walked back to where Darnell was standing near the host station. "How many people want to be part of this?" Darnell looked surprised. "You're going to let her apologize?" "I'm going to give her the chance. It's up to each person whether they want to accept it." "Sarah said she'll come out. She's scared, but she wants to face her. And Chef Antoine, he said he'd hear what she has to say about his scallops." A ghost of a smile crossed Darnell's face. His words, not mine. "Anyone else?" "A few of the servers who were working that night. Liam, the busboy. Maybe 8 people total." Marcus nodded. "Bring them out. Let's do this. 5 minutes later, a small group had gathered in the main dining room.
The restaurant was closed for the afternoon. Marcus had called ahead and told Darnell to cancel reservations until dinner service. This wasn't something that could happen with an audience. Victoria Sterling stood before them, her hands clasped in front of her, her face pale but determined. Marcus stood off to the side, watching. Sarah was the first to speak. "Why?" Her voice was shaking, but she held her ground. "Why did you treat me like that? I was just doing my job. I was following the rules, and you called me stupid. You made me feel like I was nothing." Victoria flinched as if she'd been slapped. "You're right. I did. And there's no excuse for it. None." She took a shaky breath. "I told myself that I was just having a bad day, that you were being difficult. But that's not true. The truth is that I looked at you and I decided you were beneath me. I decided that your job, your feelings, your dignity didn't matter because you were just a hostess, and I was Victoria Sterling." She paused, her voice cracking. "I was wrong. I was so wrong. You were doing your job perfectly. You were protecting a reservation for a loyal customer. That's exactly what you should have done. And I bulldozed over you because I could. Because I've spent so many years treating people like obstacles that I forgot they were human beings." Sarah's eyes were glistening. "Do you have any idea how long I cried that night? I almost quit. I thought maybe I wasn't cut out for this work if one customer could make me feel so worthless." "I'm so sorry." Victoria's voice was barely audible. "I'm so deeply sorry. You are not worthless. You were never worthless. I was the one who was worthless that night. I was the one who failed to be a decent human being." Sarah stared at her for a long moment. Then she nodded once, sharply. "I don't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I hear you." "That's more than I deserve." Darnell stepped forward next. His face was harder than Sarah's, his posture defensive. "You tried to get me fired. You lied. You said I contaminated your food when you knew that you'd done it yourself. I have 2 kids, Mrs. Sterling, 2 babies who depend on me. If I'd lost this job because of your lies, my family would have suffered." Victoria's composure cracked further. Tears were streaming down her face now, and she made no move to wipe them away. I know what I almost did to you. I've thought about nothing else for 4 days. Your children. I could have taken food off their table because I wanted to win, because I wanted to feel powerful, because," she choked on a sob, "because I saw a black man who dared to challenge me, and something ugly inside me wanted to destroy him for it." The words landed like bombs in the silent room. I won't pretend it wasn't about race. It was. Part of it was. I grew up in a world where people like me didn't see people like you as equals. I absorbed that poison, and I've been spreading it my entire adult life without ever questioning it. That's not an excuse. There is no excuse. But I want you to know that I see it now. I see what I am. What I was. Darnell's jaw was tight. Pretty words. I know they're just words. I know I can't undo what I did, but I can tell you that I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be different. Trying to see people, really see them, instead of just looking through them like they don't exist. And if you fail, if 6 months from now you're back to screaming at waitresses and planting hairs on plates. Victoria met his eyes directly. Then I'll deserve whatever comes to me. But I'm going to try, Mr. Williams. I'm going to try every single day. Darnell was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice heavy. My grandmother used to say that you can tell the measure of a person by how they treat the people who serve them. Waiters, janitors, bus drivers, the people most folks look right through. He paused. She also said that the only thing worse than a person who can't change is a person who won't. Victoria waited, barely breathing. I'm not going to forgive you today. Maybe not tomorrow. But I'll be watching, Mrs. Sterling. And if you're serious about changing, you'll prove it. Not with words, with actions. I understand. Chef Antoine stepped forward next, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. My scallops, he said. Despite everything, Victoria almost smiled. Your scallops were perfect. I knew they were perfect. I just needed something to complain about, and your beautiful dish became my weapon. She shook her head. I've eaten at restaurants all over the world, chef. Your scallops are among the best I've ever had. I'm sorry I used them to hurt people. Antoine studied her for a moment. Then he uncrossed his arms. You come back sometime, when this is all settled. I'll make you the scallops again, and you will eat them and enjoy them and say nothing but thank you. That is your penance. Victoria let out a surprised laugh, watery and broken. I would be honored. One by one, the other staff members had their moment. Some were angry, some were crying, some just wanted to look her in the eye and see if she was sincere. Victoria faced each of them, absorbing their pain, offering no excuses, asking for nothing in return. When it was over, the staff dispersed slowly, processing what had happened. Marcus walked over to where Victoria stood alone, looking somehow both lighter and more burdened than when she'd arrived. That took courage, he said. It took 4 days of my husband threatening to leave me and a complete psychological breakdown. But yes, it also took courage. What now? Victoria wiped her eyes with a tissue someone had given her. Now I go home and try to figure out who I want to be. I start therapy. I look at my life and all the ways I've used my privilege as a weapon, and I try to do better. She met his eyes. Richard told me what you said about your daughter, about teaching her to be brave. Marcus nodded slowly. I never had children, Victoria said quietly. Richard and I tried, but it never happened. Sometimes I wonder if things would have been different. If I'd had someone depending on me to be a good person, instead of just a rich one. It's not too late to be a good person, Mrs. Sterling. You don't need children for that. You just need to make the choice. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then she did something Marcus didn't expect. She extended her hand. Thank you, Mr. Thompson, for giving me this chance, for not just having me arrested that night, which is probably what I deserved. Marcus looked at her hand. He thought about everything that had happened. The humiliation, the racism, the lies, the cruelty. Then he thought about Gloria, about second chances, about the kind of world he wanted Zoe to grow up in. He took her hand and shook it. Don't thank me yet. Thank me in a year, when you've proven that today wasn't just a performance. Fair enough. Victoria gathered her purse and walked toward the door. She paused with her hand on the handle. Mr. Thompson? The young woman. Sarah. Is she going to be all right? I think so. She's stronger than she knows. Victoria nodded. Good. That's good. She pushed open the door and walked out into the afternoon sunlight. Marcus stood alone in the empty restaurant, processing everything that had just happened. He felt Darnell approach and stand beside him. You think she means it? Darnell asked. I think she wants to mean it. Whether she can follow through. Marcus shrugged. That's up to her. My grandmother would say we did the right thing, giving her the chance. Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman. She was. She also would have said that leopards don't change their spots. Marcus smiled slightly. Leopards don't, but people sometimes do. That's what makes us different. Darnell was quiet for a moment. I wasn't sure I could face her. When she walked in,
All I could think about was that night. The way she pointed at me.
The way she said, "People like you." I wanted to throw her out myself.
Why didn't you? Because you didn't. Darnell turned to look at him. You could have destroyed her completely that night. You had the power. But you gave her a chance to walk away with something. And then today, you gave her a chance to apologize. I figured if you could do that after everything she said to you, I could at least hear her out. Marcus felt a warmth spread through his chest. This was what leadership looked like. Not just making decisions, but modeling the behavior you wanted to see in others. I learned it from my wife, he said quietly. She believed that people deserved second chances, even people who didn't seem to deserve them. Sounds like an amazing woman. She was. Every single day, I tried to live up to her example. They stood together in comfortable silence, two black men in a restaurant that one of them owned and one of them now managed, contemplating the complicated nature of forgiveness and change. We should prep for dinner service, Darnell said finally. Yeah, we should. But neither of them moved, not yet. They just stood there, watching the afternoon light stream through the windows of Aurelia, letting the weight of the day settle around them. Sometimes, Marcus thought, the most important moments weren't the dramatic confrontations or the tearful apologies. Sometimes they were the quiet moments after, when you stood in the space where everything had changed and tried to figure out what came next. Gloria would have known what to say. She always did. But even without her, Marcus felt certain of one thing. Whatever came next, he wouldn't face it alone. He had his daughter. He had his team. He had a legacy worth fighting for. That was enough. That was more than enough. 6 months passed. Marcus stood at the window of his office, watching the city lights flicker to life as evening settled over Manhattan. On his desk sat a letter he'd read 3 times already, the words still sinking in. Sterling Properties had withdrawn from the Miami contract bidding. Not because Marcus had demanded it, not because of the scandal. Richard Sterling had called that morning to explain personally. "We're restructuring," Richard had said, his voice calm in a way Marcus hadn't heard before. "Victoria and I are downsizing, selling the penthouse, moving to something smaller. She's been volunteering at a homeless shelter 3 days a week, and honestly, the $90 million contracts don't seem as important as they used to." That's quite a change. It is. She's quite a change. I don't know if she'll ever be the woman I married 30 years ago. But she's trying. Every single day, she's trying. Marcus had hung up the phone, feeling something he couldn't quite name. Satisfaction wasn't the right word. Neither was vindication. It was something quieter. Something like hope. A knock on his door pulled him from his thoughts. "Come in." Darnell entered, a folder tucked under his arm and a grin on his face. "The quarterly numbers just came in." "And?" "We're up 32% from last year. Staff turnover is down to 8%. Customer satisfaction scores are the highest they've been in 5 years. Darnell set the folder on Marcus's desk. "Whatever you did when you went undercover, it worked." Marcus shook his head. "I didn't do anything except shine a light on problems that were already there. You're the one who fixed them." "We fixed them. Together." Darnell paused. "Speaking of which, I have a request." "Name it." "Liam, the busboy. He's been killing it as a server for the past few months. Smart kid. Works harder than anyone I've ever seen. He's been talking about wanting to learn the management side of things." "You want to promote him?" "I want to mentor him, like you mentored me." Darnell's voice grew serious. "He reminds me of myself at that age. Single mom raised him, works 2 jobs to help pay her rent. Has that same hunger, you know? That same need to prove he belongs." Marcus felt a warmth spread through his chest.
This was exactly what he'd hoped would happen. Leadership begetting leadership. Opportunity creating more opportunity. Do it. Whatever support he needs, whatever training, it's his. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Marcus. I've told you 100 times. Call me Marcus. Darnell smiled. Old habits. I'll work on it. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. One more thing. Sarah asked me to tell you she got accepted. Accepted? To culinary school. She's been taking night classes for the past 3 months. Turns out getting screamed at by Victoria Sterling made her realize she didn't want to be a hostess forever. She wants to be a chef. Marcus laughed out loud. From hostess to chef. That's one hell of a journey. She said that night changed her life. Not the way Mrs. Sterling intended, but it changed her life anyway. Made her realize she was stronger than she thought. After Darnell left, Marcus sat alone with his thoughts. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his photos until he found the one he was looking for. Gloria, standing in front of Aurelia on opening night, her smile brighter than all the city lights behind her. "We did good, baby," he whispered. "We did real good." That weekend, Marcus took Zoe to visit Gloria's grave. It had become their ritual, the first Saturday of every month, rain or shine. They would bring fresh flowers, sit on the bench near the headstone, and talk. Sometimes Zoe did most of the talking, filling her mother in on school and friends and all the small dramas of being 8 years old. Sometimes Marcus talked about the business, about the challenges and victories, about the ways he was trying to honor her memory. Today, Zoe was quiet. Marcus watched her place the flowers carefully at the base of the headstone, her small hands arranging the roses with deliberate care.
Daddy,
"Yeah, baby."
do you think Mommy can see us, like from heaven or wherever she is?
Marcus considered the question carefully. He'd never been particularly religious, but Gloria had believed in something larger than themselves, something that connected all living things. "I think she can," he said finally. "I think she's watching over us every day, cheering us on, getting frustrated when we make dumb decisions." Zoe giggled. "She'd get frustrated with you a lot then." "Hey now." "I'm kidding." Zoe sat down on the bench next to him, leaning her head against his arm. "Daddy, can I tell you something?" "Always." "A girl at school said something mean to me last week, about my hair. She said it looked like a bird's nest." Marcus felt his heart clench. "What did you do?" "I told her my hair was beautiful because my daddy says so, and my mommy used to say so, and that's all that matters." Zoe paused. "And then I told her that her words said more about her than they said about me." Marcus stared at his daughter. "Where did you learn that?" "From you. That night at the restaurant, when that lady called you trash. You didn't yell at her or call her names back. You just told her the truth about herself and walked away. That's what I did. I told Brittany the truth, and then I walked away." Marcus felt tears prick at his eyes. His 8-year-old daughter had absorbed a lesson he hadn't even realized he was teaching. And what happened with Brittany? She apologized the next day. She said her mom had been saying mean things about people who looked different, and she was just repeating what she heard. She said she didn't really believe it. Zoe looked up at him. "I told her that was okay, that people can change if they want to. Like the lady at your restaurant. You've been paying attention." "Always," Zoe grinned. "Mommy told me to always pay attention. She said that's how you learn what's really important." Marcus pulled his daughter close, holding her tight against his side. The autumn wind rustled through the trees, carrying with it the scent of fallen leaves and approaching winter. "Your mother was the smartest person I ever knew," he said softly. "I know. That's why I listen." Zoe was quiet for a moment. "Daddy, can I ask you something else?" "Anything." "Are you happy?" The question caught him off guard. He thought about it seriously, the way Zoe deserved. "I think I am,"
he said finally. I miss your mother every single day. Some days the missing feels so big I can barely breathe. But happy? He looked down at his daughter's upturned face. Yeah, baby, I'm happy. Because I have you. Because I have work that matters. Because I get to try every day to be the man your mother believed I could be. Zoe nodded solemnly.
Good. I'm happy too. Yeah? Yeah. Even when kids say mean things and school is hard and I miss Mommy so much it hurts, I'm still happy because I have you.
Marcus couldn't speak for a moment. The love he felt for this small person was so overwhelming it threatened to crack him open. We make a pretty good team, don't we? He managed finally. The best team. Zoe stood up and took his hand. Can we get ice cream now? Mommy always said ice cream makes everything better.
Marcus laughed, brushing the tears from his eyes with his free hand.
She did say that. Let's go. They walked away from the grave together, hand in hand, father and daughter, carrying their grief and their joy in equal measure. 1 year after the incident at Aurelia, Marcus received an invitation that surprised him. It came in a heavy cream envelope, addressed in elegant calligraphy. Inside was an invitation to the annual gala for the New York City Hospitality Workers Foundation, an organization that provided emergency assistance to restaurant workers facing financial hardship. The surprise wasn't the invitation. Marcus attended the gala every year and had been a major donor for a decade. The surprise was the name listed as this year's honorary chair, Victoria Sterling. He called Sophia immediately. Did you see this? I saw it. Apparently, she's been working with the foundation for the past 6 months. Started as a volunteer, answering phones, sorting donations. Worked her way up. Sophia paused. The director told me she specifically requested the position. Said she wanted to understand what hospitality workers actually go through. And they made her honorary chair? She donated $2 million of her own money. Not Richard's, hers. From selling her jewelry collection. Sophia's voice held a note of grudging respect. Say what you want about the woman, but she's committed to something. Marcus stared at the invitation in his hand. He thought about that day in his restaurant. Victoria Sterling standing before his staff, tears streaming down her face, apologizing to each person she had wronged. He had given her a chance, and apparently, she had taken it. Are you going? Sophia asked. Yeah, Marcus said slowly. I think I am. The gala was held at the Plaza Hotel, a glittering affair filled with New York's restaurant elite. Marcus arrived alone, having left Zoe with her grandmother for the evening. He spotted Victoria almost immediately. She was standing near the entrance, greeting guests as they arrived, her smile warm but not performative. She wore a simple black dress, expensive but understated. No diamonds, no Birkin bag. When she saw Marcus, something flickered across her face. Fear, maybe, or hope, or some complicated mixture of both. She walked over to him, her steps measured. Mr. Thompson, I wasn't sure you'd come. Neither was I. They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Around them, the gala swirled with conversation and laughter, but they existed in their own bubble of complicated history. I want you to know, Victoria said quietly, that I think about that night every single day. Not as a punishment, as a reminder of who I was and who I'm trying not to be anymore. And who are you trying to be? Victoria considered the question seriously. Someone my mother would be proud of. Someone who sees people instead of looking through them. Someone who uses what she has to help instead of to hurt. She paused. I'll never be able to undo what I did to you and your staff, but I can spend the rest of my life trying to balance the scales. Marcus studied her face, searching for any trace of the woman who had called him trash a year ago. He didn't find her. The person standing before him was someone different.
worn down by the weight of her own reckoning, but also somehow lighter. "How's Richard?" "He's good. Better than good, actually. We renewed our vows last month. Small ceremony, just family." Victoria smiled slightly. "He says I'm easier to live with now that I'm not constantly angry at the world." "That's progress." "It is. Slow progress. Painful progress. But progress." She met his eyes directly. "I want to thank you, Mr. Thompson." "For what?" "For not destroying me when you had the chance. You could have. That night, you had every right to call the police, to press charges, to make sure I faced every possible consequence. Instead, you gave me the chance to face myself. That was the hardest consequence of all, and the only one that could actually change me." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. He thought about Gloria, about Zoe, about all the lessons he'd tried to teach, and all the lessons he'd been taught. "My wife believed in second chances," he said finally. "She believed that people could change if they were given the opportunity and the motivation. I didn't give you that chance for your sake, Mrs. Sterling. I gave it for hers, to honor her memory, to be the man she believed I could be." Victoria's eyes glistened. "Then I owe her too, even though I never met her." "You would have liked her. Everyone liked her." Marcus paused. "She probably would have told me I was too hard on you that night. She would have found a way to reach you without the public humiliation. Maybe, but I don't think I would have listened. I needed to be broken before I could be rebuilt. Your wife sounds like she was very wise, but sometimes the gentler approach doesn't work on people like me." Victoria smiled ruefully. "We need the sledgehammer." Marcus found himself laughing despite everything. "That's probably true. Mr. Thompson, I have a request, and I understand if you say no." "What is it?" "The foundation is looking for partners in the restaurant industry. People who can help identify workers in crisis, who can connect them with resources. I was hoping—" She took a breath. "I was hoping Aurelia might consider participating." Marcus considered it. A year ago, the idea would have been absurd, partnering with the woman who had tried to destroy his employee's career. But a year ago, Victoria Sterling was a different person. And maybe the point of redemption was that it created possibilities that didn't exist before. "I'll talk to Darnell," he said. "He's the one running things now. It should be his decision." Victoria nodded. "That's fair. Thank you for considering it." "And Mrs. Sterling?" "Yes?" "Call me Marcus." Something shifted in Victoria's expression. Surprise, gratitude. The tentative beginning of something that might, in time, become mutual respect. "Thank you, Marcus." He nodded once, then walked into the gala to mingle with the other guests. But throughout the evening, he found himself watching Victoria. Watching her interact with servers and busboys and dishwashers, treating each one with careful respect. Watching her listen, really listen when they talked about their struggles. Change was possible. Gloria had always believed that, and tonight, Marcus believed it too. 2 months later, Marcus sat in his office, putting the finishing touches on a document that had taken him 6 months to write. It was a letter to Zoe. Not for now, she was still too young, but for her 18th birthday. A letter explaining who her father was, what he had built, and why. He wrote about Gloria, about how they had met and fallen in love and dreamed of building something together. He wrote about the early years, the struggle, the 18-hour days, and the mountains of debt and the constant fear that it would all fall apart. He wrote about that night at Aurelia, about Victoria Sterling and her cruelty, about the moment he chose to reveal himself, about the aftermath and the apologies, and the long road towards something that might be called forgiveness. And he wrote about what he hoped Zoe would take from all of it. "Baby girl," he wrote, "by the time you read this, you'll be a woman. You'll have faced your own Victoria Sterlings. People who look at you and decide you're less than human because of your skin or your gender or whatever excuse they use to feel powerful. You'll be tempted to fight fire with fire, to let their hatred make you hateful. Don't. Your mother taught me that the strongest thing you can do is stay true to who you are, even when the world tells you you're worthless. Build something beautiful. Treat people with dignity. And when someone treats you with cruelty, don't let them steal your soul in the process. You can hold people accountable without becoming them. You can demand justice without losing your humanity. You can be strong and kind at the same time. That's what your mother believed. That's what I try to live every day. And that's what I hope you'll carry forward into whatever life you build for yourself. I love you more than words can express. I'm proud of you already, even though I don't know yet who you'll become. Whatever you do, wherever you go, remember, you come from love. You were raised with purpose, and you have the power to change the world. Use it wisely. Love always, Dad. He signed the letter, folded it carefully, and placed it in an envelope marked, "For Zoe, 18th birthday." Then he locked it in his safe, next to Gloria's wedding ring and the deed to their first restaurant, and all the other precious things that told the story of his life. That evening, he picked Zoe up from school and took her to Aurelia for dinner. They sat at the best table, the one by the window overlooking the park. The same table Victoria Sterling had demanded a year ago. Darnell came out to greet them personally, his face breaking into a wide smile when he saw Zoe. "There she is! My favorite junior food critic," Zoe giggled. "Hi, Mr. Williams. Can I have the scallops tonight?" "For you? Anything." He winked at Marcus. "Chef Antoine has been working on a new preparation. He says it's his best yet." "Then bring it on." As they waited for their food, Zoe told Marcus about her day. The science project she was working on, the friend drama that seemed to change by the hour, the book she was reading for class. Marcus listened to every word, memorizing the sound of her voice, the way her eyes lit up when she was excited, the small gestures that reminded him so much of Gloria. "Daddy?" "Yeah, baby?" "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you ever get tired of trying to be good all the time?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Sometimes it would be easier to just not care, to let things slide, to look the other way when something's wrong." He paused. "But then I think about you, about the kind of world I want you to grow up in. And I realize that the only way that world exists is if people like us keep fighting for it." Zoe nodded slowly. "That makes sense. Your mother used to say that being good isn't about being perfect. It's about trying, getting up every day and choosing to try, even when it's hard, even when you fail, even when nobody's watching." "I miss her." "I miss her too, baby. Every single day." Zoe reached across the table and took his hand. Her small fingers wrapped around his, holding tight. "But we're okay, right? You and me?" Marcus looked at his daughter, this fierce, brilliant, beautiful girl who carried her mother's spirit and her father's stubbornness, and something uniquely her own that made her unlike anyone else in the world. "Yeah, baby," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "We're more than okay. We're everything." The food arrived. Chef Antoine's new scallop preparation, as beautiful as any artwork Marcus had ever seen. They ate together, father and daughter, as the city lights glittered outside and the restaurant hummed with warmth and life around them. This was his legacy. Not the restaurants, not the money, not even the empire he had built. His legacy was sitting across from him, laughing at something Darnell said, her whole future stretching out before her, like an unwritten story. His legacy was every person he had lifted up, every second chance he had given, every moment he had chosen dignity over cruelty. His legacy was proving that a black boy from nothing could build something beautiful, could face down hatred with grace, could raise a daughter who would change the world. Gloria would be proud. He was certain of it. Marcus Thompson looked around the restaurant that bore his dreams, listened to his daughter's laughter, and felt something settle deep in his chest. Peace. After everything, the struggle, the loss, the confrontation, the healing, peace. This was what victory looked like. Not the destruction of enemies, but the construction of something better. Not revenge, but redemption. Not hatred, but hope. He had built his empire on a foundation of respect. He had faced his greatest test and emerged with his soul intact. And now, sitting across from his daughter in a restaurant filled with people he loved, Marcus Thompson knew the truth that had guided him his entire life. The measure of a man is not in his wealth or his power, or his ability to destroy those who wrong him. The measure of a man is in what he builds, how he treats people, and what he leaves behind for the next generation. Marcus Thompson had built something beautiful. He had treated people with dignity, even those who gave him none. And what he left behind, for Zoe, for Darnell, for Sarah and Liam, and everyone whose life he had touched, was a simple but powerful truth. You are not defined by how others see you. You are defined by how you see yourself. And no one, no matter how rich, how powerful, how cruel, can ever take that away.